Dansinger with world-renowned diabetes reversal expert, Dr. Dansinger. Today, gosh, we are going to run the gamut when it comes to diabetes reversal and artery health because I think, Dr. Dansinger, we have more than 20 questions that have come in. Of course, we're always here for anyone who's also joining us live. We'll prioritize your questions on YouTube, put them in comments, on Facebook, put them in comments, Twitter in comments. But here in our live studio audience, make sure you do just put them in chat, or we can also have you jump in and talk to Dr. Dansinger live. But you can always join our live in studio audience at info@padhelp.org. But if you want one-on-one intention from Dr. Dansinger, you live in Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, New York, Massachusetts, or Florida, and you have Medicare or Medicare Advantage PPO plans, you can actually ask your primary care doctor for a referral to his program, and it's covered by insurance. But Dr. Dansinger, we got to jump right into these questions because we have a lot of them. You're kind of a popular guy.
Bring them on. We have a
Here we
lot
go.
of questions. I'll try to keep the answers short.
Okay. So Chloe, I'm on a GLP-1, very popular question these days, and she barely feels hungry. How do I make sure I'm getting enough protein so I don't lose muscle instead of fat?
Yeah, protein's very important for that. And well, think about which proteins are your favorites and then aim for healthy versions of those. So my favorite recommendations are fish and shellfish and lean poultry. Lean red meat is okay. It's got to be lean though. And then there's eggs, especially egg whites and low-fat dairy and vegetarian protein sources. If anyone likes tofu, that's a pretty healthy protein as well. And then there's beans and lentils and legumes, and nuts have a little bit of protein, so lots of good options.
Okay, and now we have a question from Robert. Since these medications, the GLP-1s especially, slow digestion, are there certain heart healthy fats that might be harder on the stomach than
Yeah,
others?
some of these we covered last week, Kim,
Yep.
including this one, I think. But so I think the shorter answer is no. Fats, these medications do slow gastric emptying, stomach emptying, and fats do the same thing. And it's not that healthy fats or unhealthy fats have particularly different effects there. There's all sorts of reasons to stick to the healthy fats rather than the unhealthy fats. And so some of the best healthy fats are the plant-based fats from avocados, nuts, and olives, and then fish and seafood have healthy fats as well. So those are the best fats. And if you have a problem with stomach emptying, keep the portions smaller.
Okay, Tasha wants to know, she said she's wearing a wearable and it shows bigger glucose spikes with oatmeal than with eggs and bacon. Should I trust that and change my breakfast? Now, here's what's interesting, Dr. Danziger, before you answer that, is my dad was told not to eat a big bowl of oatmeal, but that the dietitian wanted a little bit of rolled oats and a little bit of steel cut oats with a little bit of quinoa, and then add in a whole bunch of raw cacao and collagen and ground chia seeds and ground flax seeds and such, and then add some fruit and a few nuts to it.
Right. So when it comes to oatmeal will spike your blood sugar and because there's so much starch in it. But there's also fiber which slows the prolongs the peak and or flattens out the peak a little bit, whereas eggs and bacon have no carbohydrate and they won't bump the blood sugar nearly as much. And so fiber is good, but starch causes blood sugar spikes. If you're eating oatmeal, the best way to deal with it is to keep the portions small and also choose the kind of oatmeal that takes a long time to cook and like you were describing, Kim, and not the instant oatmeal either. And so eggs and bacon are not a perfect breakfast either because of their saturated fat and cholesterol. But if you had to pick one of those for diabetes, I actually favor the high protein, low starch meal.
Yeah. So you'd prefer oatmeal over eggs and bacon?
No, I prefer bacon and eggs over
You
oatmeal,
really
but yes.
actually prefer bacon and eggs? Oh
For
my goodness. But
for people who are having blood sugar spikes and have an elevated A1C, especially people who don't have, are protected from high cholesterol due to a statin or other lipid medication, I actually favor the bacon and eggs, but now I'm having to choose between, a C and a B minus. I'd rather, egg whites without bacon would be better than either of those options with a
yeah, and
little bit of
you know what I do for my dad is I scramble up on a Sunday and then he can have it 2 days in the week. But I try doing different scrambles and I just mix egg whites with mushrooms and I get a bunch of frozen veggies and such. And I just saute them and I add the eggs to them and I make a bunch of different scrambles and I put them in the fridge. And, like this morning, he just took one out and he popped it in the pan for an extra second, added an extra, because I use the egg whites, but then when he fixes it himself, he'll add one full egg to it. Um, and then he stirs it up and he has a nice breakfast in the morning. Okay. We're going on to, let's see. I think we have Sam. I keep seeing things about specific gut bacteria helping blood sugar. Is there any reason to consider probiotic supplements?
It's a great question, and the short answer is we're not sure. Some people, feel like, oh, the answer is definitely yes. I don't feel that way. So, gut bacteria are very important. And the best way to keep your gut bacteria healthy is to eat a lot of fiber foods, especially, vegetables, and then fruits would be my second choice for that. So fiber is the favorite food of the gut bacteria, and even more importantly is steering clear of, highly processed, obviously unhealthy foods. They're terrible for your gut bacteria. And so improving the ratio of healthy to unhealthy food is the best thing you can do for your gut bacteria. Yogurt is another good option. I favor the Greek unsweetened plain low fat yogurt. Those I think are superior to any supplement that you could take, either prebiotic, probiotic or postbiotic. Um, Food is 10 times more important, I think, than these supplements.
And with our eggs in the morning, I put a handful of kimchi on the side.
An
So that
excellent
should help.
fermented food choice, yes.
So Mike is asking, he's in the live studio audience about Beyond Meat burgers, and that's one question. And then, is vegan food as healthy as sometimes suggested? And I think we're talking about the ultra processed foods, and my opinion on those Beyond burgers, the fake meat. I mean, if you're going to eat it, I just think go ahead and eat it, or else get used to eating natural vegetables in their natural form versus in their ultra processed form. But I will leave it to you because I do not have any sort of MD next to my name.
So, Kim, you and I are largely aligned on this. I think I'm a little bit more um, tolerant of the Beyond Burger, Impossible Burger. I think they're most well suited for vegetarians or vegans who just really miss the meat. For people who already eat meat, I would favor a very lean beef over one of those types of meat alternatives. I think the from a nutritional standpoint, they're not ideal. They have to use a lot of fats in there. They're getting better with using healthier fats like avocado oil than other saturated fats. There's a lot of ingredients in there, and so lean poultry, lean pork, lean beef, I think from a nutritional standpoint are actually better.
And I have a couple options that have really worked for us. Instead of a regular burger, try doing a marinated portobello mushroom. But also, instead of a steak, try marinating lion's mane. Oh my goodness, the texture and the flavor, it's just absolutely delicious and so satisfying. And then my dad always used to love pulled pork. So instead, I get the frozen dragon fruit And then I put
Uh,
his favorite barbecue sauce on it, and I put it in a little sourdough pocket.
so, Mike, that was a great question. I hope we answered it.
Okay, so we have Kevin who's been reading about precision nutrition. And I couldn't remember if we actually covered this last week or if I touched on it and just mentioned it. But are there any tests like DNA or microbiome testing that actually help personalize what I should and shouldn't eat?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's an important question. When we're talking about precision nutrition, I think we're talking about using specialized testing to help guide the nutrition prescription. And there's
Mhm.
something to it, yes. And so knowing about your DNA and your intestinal bacteria, and also blood tests like your, the whether your elevated cholesterol is due to overproduction by the liver or overabsorption by the intestinal tract.
I love that you hit on that every time. I
Yeah.
love that. So many more people need to know about that.
Yes, absolutely. What's your MTHFR status? How much of your LDL bad cholesterol is the small, unhealthy versus the large, less unhealthy? And so all of these factors together, I believe, can help to steer people toward or away from certain foods. And so some people are just more sensitive to dietary cholesterol than others. So these factors can add value. It's usually expensive. The mainstream medical community has sort of decided that these don't add enough value to really recommend on a routine basis. It's an area of debate. And so I think the short answer is yes. So we're missing a lot when we're only testing just the basic, cholesterol profile, inflammatory markers, et cetera. All these things can, I think, help steer the personalization.
Yeah, I think that the last week in April when we come back live again, I think that that would be a really great topic. Let's mark that because everyone always wants to ask, what testing they can get that their PCP, their primary care GP would agree to versus what they would have to go, let's say, to a functional medicine practitioner or to buy on their own through an independent walk-in laboratory.
And
Um,
by the way, Kim, PAD Association has written materials that people can use to gain insights
yes.
about that.
Actually, we should promote that a lot more because we do have a free copy that's available, and we have one that's for 20 bucks on Amazon. It's called Food for Thought. Just search peripheral artery disease on Amazon. It costs us $18.75 or 80 cents per printout. So that's why we charge 20 on there, but we don't really make anything off of it. If you do need a free copy, we can give you a digital copy as well. But Dr. Dansinger has an exhaustive list of tests and information on all of this in that book that is really easy to read, which we're still going to get you to actually tape each of those and do an audio version of them as well, which we need to schedule. But Grace is asking, does the order I eat my food in, like vegetable first, then protein, then carbs, really actually make a difference for blood sugar and my artery health?
It's a great question. I think in some people it might matter more than others, but overall, for most people, I just don't think it matters enough to make a big effort to eat that way. I think, it's hard enough to steer clear from unhealthy treats. It's hard enough to push the protein to optimal levels. It's hard enough to eat less sugar and starch. It's for people who are doing intermittent fasting, there's more rules. I just hate to add any more rules than already, are needed in order to optimize health. So I think that one's pretty, the order of the food on the plate or in the meal. I just don't think it matters enough to, emphasize it. I would say much more important is what you're eating and how much you're eating rather than the order or even the timing of the day.
Okay. Isabel, the new food pyramid puts animal protein higher up. Does that change how we should think about red meat and cholesterol?
It's a great question. So we've done a whole episode on the food pyramid. I gave it
Right.
an A minus at the time. I still give it an A minus. And what I like about it is, I mean, it really emphasizes the importance of eating whole foods, natural foods, and steering clear of all these ultra processed foods. That's the most important thing about the new pyramid. It really emphasizes that. And protein's right at the top. So I agree that fish and shellfish, lean poultry, lean red meat is valuable and is really useful for people who are trying to lower their starch and refined sugars. So refine their sugars and refined starches. But fat and cholesterol from meat and dairy is unhealthy. It clogs up the arteries, and so you want to eat the healthiest proteins then you can. I mean, fish is always healthier than red meat, and poultry is going to be healthier than red meat. And it's really the saturated fat I'm worried about. And so don't get fooled into thinking that protein foods with animal fat are, free reign at this point. Do not make that mistake.
So we have two questions that are actually three questions,
Yeah.
that are right along, aligned. So just written maybe in a little different way. Nora is saying, is full fat dairy better for diabetes because it keeps you full, or is the saturated fat still something to worry about?
The saturated fat from dairy is a problem, and although it there is research that makes it look like it's not as big of a problem as we used to think. And maybe there's some truth to that, especially for people who are on cholesterol lowering medications. I think they can um, the dairy fat isn't quite as dangerous as it used to be for people who have their cholesterol under good control. But the low fat version of dairy products is better in my view. I think the research would support that. There are some studies that do show that these fermented dairy products like yogurt or cheese do have health benefits despite the saturated fat in there. But lowering the saturated fat by eating low fat versions of these foods, I think is just better. It's fewer calories and it means more protein. So that's the way to go in my view.
And Andre is asking about butter and beef tallow, if it can raise LDL more than olive oil, but he says, I'm also seeing mixed messaging. What actually matters most for artery health? And here's one of the things that's really confusing about the beef tallow and the big push by RFK. I think there were a couple fast food chains that said, oh, we're now frying French fries in the beef tallow. Maybe it's better than the seed oils, the hydrogenized oils that they were using before, but it's still, number one, it doesn't make it healthy. It's still fried. But number two, is it the real beef tallow or is it the genetically modified tallow from Pfizer?
Mm.
And I think that that would make a difference as well.
That's an interesting point, Kim. So I'm going to say, first and foremost, beef tallow clogs the arteries. I mean, it tastes delicious. It's going to make tastier fries, no doubt, than seed oils. But, that saturated fat is delicious. I wish beef fat I wish beef fat was healthy. It's just not. And no serious nutrition expert would even waste time trying to debate it because to me, it's the same as trying to argue that smoking is okay. It's just not. And so, seed oils, they're not the best, but they're not the worst. So I mean, you don't replace something that's mediocre with something that's terrible. Having said that, I don't want to see a lot of seed oils it's in processed food. And
Yeah.
and the way our country makes seed oils is concerning. It's bad for the soil, etc. So I'm sorry, beef tallow is nothing but trouble.
Okay. You want to add to that?
No, that's it.
Okay. Um, Mic drop on that one. Felix, if I move, toward more plant-based protein for my arteries, how do I manage the carbs in foods like beans and lentils?
Yeah. So beans and lentils. So that's for people who are vegan, beans and lentils are one of the most important protein sources, and also for people who are vegetarian, even though they have eggs and egg whites, etc. The beans and lentils are pretty important. What I like about them is there's fiber in them. They taste delicious, they're versatile, they're inexpensive, they're healthy. And what I don't like about beans and the lentils is they can spike your blood sugar because they have starch in them. I said the same thing about oatmeal, right? So oatmeal and lentils, they aren't that different, but legumes like lentils and beans, they do have protein in them. They're less processed than most oatmeals, and so I draw a line there and say for most people I'd rather have them eating beans and lentils than oatmeal, but they're just on one they're not that different from each other. So let's say the most important way to avoid the blood sugar spike is to keep the portions small, to pair it with tofu or nuts if you can, or if you're vegetarian with eggs or egg whites. So I pair eggs and legumes together pretty commonly. And the way I do that is using the Middle Eastern recipe for shakshuka. So all over the Middle East, people might have for dinner or brunch, they might have eggs in a base of pureed onion and tomato, canned tomato. And I like to add hummus or pureed chickpeas or whole chickpeas into mine. And so for dinner, probably once every 2 weeks, I'll have shakshuka, which is onions, pureed tomatoes, with or without chickpeas, and then you drop some eggs right into that after it's been simmering for a while. Cook it for until it's done to your liking. You can put a little dill or cilantro on there, and you're good to go. That's a great dinner.
Oh my goodness, that looks absolutely delicious. I am looking at it right now, and it's how it sounds. It's Shak, Shuka. And I mean, honestly, I'm going to have to try it now because that looks absolutely amazing. So thank you for that. Couple more questions here. Victor, I've heard berberine called a natural alternative to GLP-1 drugs. Is that accurate and could it interfere with prescriptions? A friend's endocrinologist said that berberine is a farce.
Great question about berberine. So berberine is, a supplement. It comes from a special plant,
Yeah.
and it is often used to help lower blood sugar. So it's more like metformin than it is like a GLP-1 like Ozempic or Manjaro. So maybe think of it more like a natural alternative to metformin, and it does help slightly. Maybe, the prescription drugs might, each one might help lower the A1C by like 1.0 or zero point 0.7. Berberine might lower the A1C by like zero point 0.2 or zero point 0.3. I think there's something to it. I mean, there's been enough randomized trials, but it's not in the same league as prescription medications. But many people are trying to avoid prescription medications for their diabetes. And I do think that supplements like berberine probably have a role there. And so it's just a kind of think of it as a gentle version of metformin. And there's not a lot of you know, major cross reactivity with other drugs. But when it comes to supplements and medications, always ask your prescriber their thoughts about it.
Okay. Speed round. Two more questions. Sophia, I've started using allulose as a sweetener. Are there any concerns for gut health or inflammation in using that?
So allulose is a naturally occurring um, sugar alternative. It's made, in factories though. And so far, we really haven't seen a whole lot of research information about it. I'm pretty positive about allulose. It doesn't spike the blood sugar. And so far, we haven't seen a lot of research studies showing problems from it. It can cause a little bit of diarrhea if you overdo it, but you have to eat a lot of it. I've seen allulose, for example, in chocolate chips at Trader Joe, chocolate chips made with allulose instead of sugar at Trader Joe's. I think we're going to see more and more allulose. You can certainly buy it online in packets and use it in place of sugar. So more to come on allulose. Right now, it's right near the top of my list. But I used to say that about erythritol too. And then years later, we saw that, it might, promote blood clotting in people who are prone to that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if a few years down the road, we saw some negative side effects of allulose. Time will
Yeah,
tell.
less is more, and it's just better just just get used to things that are not sweet. Okay, one more thing. If I could do it, anyone could do it. I was a 4 pump vanilla latte girl. I'm now on black coffee. So if I could do it, anyone could do it. Oscar, I keep hearing about omega-3 ratios instead of just taking supplements. Is it better to get them from food like sardines, or is a supplement enough?
Great question. You always want to get your health benefits from real food when possible. And a lot of people do take fish oil in order to get high enough levels of omega-3. If you have heart disease, of course you want to work with your, cardiologist and your primary care provider. Most people who have known heart disease or arterial disease like PAD probably benefit from fish oil if they're not able to keep their levels of omega-3s high enough with actual fish. If you like fish, go for it. I mean, if you can eat fish or seafood 3 or 4 times a week, it's
Yep.
good. You want to manage your mercury levels and avoid high mercury fish, especially especially tuna and swordfish. But for the most part, you want to if you can't get enough fish in your diet, ask your doctor about omega-3s. It's mainly for people with arterial disease.
Okay, really quickly. Regina wants to know, I have heard sugar in the raw is better than pure cane sugar. What are your thoughts on that? And then I know we have one more question here from her. What's the difference in fish oil versus cod liver oil, if any? If you can throw those in there.
Okay, so remind me the first
The
one.
first one was about sugar in the raw
Yeah, sugar in the
versus pure
raw.
cane.
Sugar in the raw versus I mean, I give one an F and one a D minus. So the amount is much more important than I mean, it's barely better. And
Okay,
then
fish
um,
oil versus cod liver oil.
cod liver oil is probably pretty good. I don't know anyone who takes it, but some people have grandparents or parents who might have been in on it. It's probably pretty good. So I like that idea.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Dansinger. We really appreciate you. We're going to end on a shot of your favorite shakshuka, which I think will be really amazing for everyone just to see how amazing it is. And make sure you Google it because it looks absolutely delicious. Thank you so much for all your time, Dr. Dansinger. We really appreciate you. If you want one-on-one attention from Dr. Dansinger and you're in Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York, or Florida, and you have a Medicare or Medicare Advantage PPO plan, go to diabetesreversalpartners.com to check out his services because they're covered. But also make sure you subscribe to his channel on YouTube, youtube.com/the @ Michael Dansinger MD. And also like this video, subscribe to our channel for the Global PAD Association at The Way to My Heart. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate you so much for being here. And I hope you do have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kim.